And good morning, Hoosier Nation, and welcome to another catch-up kind of edition of Hoosier Morning After. This is Hoosier Morning After ups and downs, and we'll talk some football too, because we haven't seen you guys to talk to you guys in quite a while. Martha and I both were at the football game and everything. So yeah, lots to catch up in this game. Your Indiana Hoosiers, as they currently sit, are sitting at 15-8 in the season. A 500 in the Big Ten at 6-6. Has been some pretty big ups and downs as the season has progressed, and since we have last talked to each other in these games. Indiana, obviously, the other night finishes their West Coast swing with a horribly timed, horribly covered announcer-wise Peacock game at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Wasn't sure if I would be able to stay up late enough to be able to watch this game, but a real tough game. That one was. The chances were there. Indiana had opportunities in this game, and the points weren't there from the supporting factors that we've had recently. The things that have been clicking weren't clicking right. We had Reed Bailey kind of come on for a little bit, gain some confidence, some aggression near the rim, a little bit of false aggressiveness as it led to a lot of blocks leading after that. We can talk a little deeper into that, but just a kind of tough game to lose after what Indiana has been doing recently. Here with me always, of course, I'm your host, Chad Schwartzkopf, but here with me always is Martha, the mop lady. Martha, kind of give me your thoughts overall on this last game, this USC game.
You go back to kind of. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna rewind just a little bit further and kind of start with Purdue and not necessarily go over it. But when you look at like the Purdue game and then the road trip, I think if you ask anybody if Indiana can find a way to go 2-1 in those three games, I think you immediately take it just with how the season's going, right? In hindsight, right? And the flip side of that is when you're sitting there winning against Purdue and then winning at UCLA, all of a sudden the USC game almost appears as the easiest of the three to get, especially as you're watching it transpire, right? It's like, man, we can beat these guys. We can beat these guys. And each one of the previous two wins had moments of like, oh boy, this one might be getting away from us a little bit, or especially in the way we were finishing those games against Purdue and of course UCLA. We can talk about the last 90 seconds on how it slipped away. So there's always those built-in flaws that we kind of have to work through. But at the end of the day, we got two wins, and then we play the USC game, and it's, as you're watching it, especially in the first half, you're like, we're better than these guys. I think if we do our thing, if we shoot the ball halfway decent, we're going to win this basketball game. The problem is the only guy that shot the ball halfway decent was Lamar Wilkerson. And, the previous two games, we had Nick Dorn step up. I thought DeVries was playing better, and we had more guys contribute. I thought Reed Bailey played some of his best basketball of the season against Purdue and UCLA. And I think you saw maybe, especially with the 10 o'clock tip-off, the double overtime game against UCLA, you saw some tired legs, and it showed. And there's just, it's the Big Ten. There's just not room to slip up. The frustrating part, and I think that's what you saw in the reaction, is that was a very, very winnable game. It was like going up to Minnesota. Those are two games that you look back on, and you can even throw Nebraska at home into that equation. Like those games are going to add up. There's just not a lot of room for error with Indiana's resume. So I think that's the frustrating part. Is, man, that felt like a very, very winnable game watching it. And the fact that we kind of let it slip away in the second half and got behind by enough. We made a late run where we made it close, but the damage had already been done at that point, that it was just too much to overcome. I think that's the frustrating part, but I think we know what this team is at this point, and when all things are clicking, they have a chance to upset some teams. And I think they're in a position now where you look at the rest of the season on if things click down the stretch, they've got a great chance to make the tournament.
Yeah, and I think that's where it is. You have to have the right scoring and the right contributions happening for this team, because it's not a deep team. And like you started to say there, it's what we're going to see, and I think what the roller coaster is going to be for this team, and it's going to be a conditioning standpoint. It's going to be these are older players. These are players that have played a lot of minutes, and there's a lot of wear on those tires. If you kind of take that analogy, this car's been running at a high speed, grinding down those tires quite a bit, and you've seen that in a lot of games. I saw that in the Purdue game. I was really concerned towards the end of that game that you saw the legs and the fouling start to mount up. Same with the UCLA game, and then it just compounded itself in this USC game with the foul calling. Now, granted, I didn't like a lot of the foul calling in the USC game, but Indiana doing the one thing in that game that they shouldn't have done, which is put them at the free throw line. I mean, you have that free throw disparity that is just ridiculous. I mean, bringing it up right now, USC shot 31 free throws in that game to Indiana's 16, and you can't spot a team that many points. They made 25 of them, so there's 25 points. And Indiana down the stretch in this as well, while they did hit some of those free throws that they got to the line towards the end of the game, missed some of them as well. And I think you've seen that as well when you go to other games. UCLA game is a big one where in regulation it should have been won by Indiana. You had Lamar Wilkinson missed the front end of a 1-and-1, and I think there was another player. I can't remember if it was DeVries or who else, but another player missed the front end of a 1-and-1, and that's usually and most likely due to just tired legs. You're tired and you've been grinding all game, and it's a little bit harder to get it to the basket in those situations. So I think that is going to be the biggest hurdle, the biggest, if you want to put a stain on it, the biggest hump for Indiana to get over as the season progresses is going to be that fatigue. And we're going to see games where they're back at it. They're playing physical. They're doing good things that you've seen, like in Purdue and UCLA with defense and staying just on that edge of not fouling. And then you're going to see tired legs, and you're going to see UCLA game happen. And I think you said it right there, where it's just kind of one of those games where, yes, we did steal 2 really good quad 1 wins, but then there's other games, like you said in the past, the Minnesota, this UCLA game, that just kind of slipped through our hands, that are missed opportunities, and it's going to cause some very interesting things for Indiana. Talking about players, though, you kind of briefly mentioned on him, and I think the one thing that we've been talking about throughout this year has been Indiana needs that third score and that good, consistent third score, and they kind of found it in this recent stretch that we haven't talked to or haven't been talking much or doing many shows in Nick Dorn. We've been hoping for that, saying that once he's healthy, he was projected to be that player that was going to get into the starting lineup and be a good player for Indiana. And you kind of saw that. He came on in the Rutgers game. That was the first game that he scored 23 points. He followed that up with the Purdue game with 18, the UCLA game with 26, and then fell off. And we didn't see it from him in the USC game, just 6 in there. Talk about Nick Dorn and what we've seen kind of come together with him.
Well, you and I spent a lot of, like you mentioned, spent a lot of time talking about him leading up to the season. He came in as one of our, I think, most heralded recruits, just in terms of his production last season and what he was able to do at his previous school. So we were excited to see what he could do, and excited to get him healthy. And this is probably, especially with Tate Connerway being shelved a little bit, he's getting extended minutes. So I think in a kind of a microcosm of Indiana's problems, Nick Dorn speaks to it, I think, the best, because he's a guy that hasn't had to play the amount of minutes that he's played the last 3 or 4 games. And I think it really showed against UCLA. You look at his box score, and obviously he was tremendous against Purdue, tremendous against UCLA, but then went 2 for 12, all 3-point field goals against USC. Didn't get to the free throw line. So you can say maybe he was just settling a lot. And I think that's obviously what he does best is shoot threes. But I think if anybody had tired legs, it was Nick Dorn. But you rewind to the previous 2 games. What a pleasant surprise it is. Maybe not a surprise, but it's awesome to see that third guy step up, because we've seen, the one kind of given we've seen Tucker DeVries struggle a little bit, right? But the one given has kind of been Lamar Wilkerson. We need that second guy, that third guy to be there, and Nick Dorn, the way he's kind of broken through a little bit, to have him be the offensive threat and what he's shown. Plus, I think he's only a junior, so I think not only does it speak to what we have now, but I think everybody's been kind of concerned about, man, this team's so old. What does this look like next year? To see Nick Dorn step up and contribute the way he has and gain the confidence he has here the last couple of games, I also think it gives us, the program, everybody involved, a little bit of confidence to what this looks like moving forward as well.
Yeah, and another hopeful thing, at least, that we saw glimpses of, I think it was Rab Johns that posted a video of it. There were reports, at least at the USC game, that they saw Josh Harris starting to warm up with the team at the beginning. He's a player, again, that we haven't seen at all. So hopefully he's able to find his footing and slowly get some minutes and start to spell some of these guys. And we'll see. We'll see with him. He's a younger guy as well for this team. And we'll see how the transition from his previous program and how that leads and everything like that. You mentioned one thing there, too, that's kind of been interesting throughout these games, and that's been the absence of Tate Connerway. That had me the most scared going into the Purdue game. When I saw that he was not going to go and everything, I was very concerned. When you're going against, I hate to say it, but one of the best point guards in the country, one of the main reasons, almost the only reason that Purdue is ranked as high up there in Braden Smith, going into that game, what he was going to contribute for their team and needing to have 2 point guards to go up against him, 2 guys to be able to knock against him and keep him tired, stay the aggressive against him, was something that I thought was going to be key to this. And knowing that Tatum was going to be out and it was going to be all Connor, I was a little concerned, although Connor is a guy that's not going to back down from anything. And he did continue to play 40 minutes that game and played an amazing game against him and was just the thorn in his side and took away what is the leading assist guy in the country to a very low assist rate in that game. Was just amazing. And Connor Enright continues to be that kind of conundrum of a player where you're not getting the point totals from him. You're not getting those point contributions, but you get it so many other places. And just the assist wise as well. I mean, the last 4 games, he has more assists than he has points. How often can you say that about a player? He has 27 assists in those 4 games and just 16 points. So amazing what he's able to contribute, but it's also kind of that conundrum because then you see the opponents. You kind of saw Purdue game plan against that too, where they would put a big guy on him, guarding him offensively because he's not an offensive threat, at least scoring wise, to which I think is a bad play because he has showed games where he can be streaky with points and contribute a little bit, but then also turn around and be the distributor. So very interesting kind of what we've gotten from him. And I love his tenacity and what he is as a player, but talk a little bit of that dynamic where we've kind of lost Tatum, but where Connor Enright has kind of picked up.
Yeah, I think just kind of to piggyback off what you were saying, Connor Enright is, I think, at his best, or at his best for this team when that second and third scorer is providing us with adequate offense, right? Like when it becomes magnified, where his inability to score the basketball becomes magnified for us is really a game like USC when where's that second and third scorer going to come from? And when you look out there and you have whether it's Tatum coming back from injury and not quite being ready versus Connor being out there, it's like where are those points going to come from, especially when guy 2 and 3 aren't stepping up, and that's when it becomes a little bit difficult. And I think we found the balance. You saw, obviously Nick Dorn stepping up, Tucker DeVries starting to play better. It's okay when you have a guy like Connor Enright out there because he's going to play that lockdown defense. He's going to be that spark plug guy that you need. So I think you need a guy like that on your team, and I think it works best when the offense is producing like it should. The unfortunate part of it is we've had some moments of streaky shooting on our program or on our team this year. But I think the big thing is just getting Tate Connerway to play a little bit more consistently. Obviously, you take the injury out of the equation, you can't control that. But there's times, I go back to the Kansas State game, or I want to say maybe the Marquette game, where Tate Connerway was kind of a difference guy on the court in terms of not only distributing the basketball, but also getting downhill, scoring baskets. But then there's also games where he just disappears and, maybe forces stuff and turns the ball over. And it's just some of those inconsistencies offensively that I think also magnifies some of our deficiencies as well. So getting him to play a little bit more consistently, I think, is key because, again, you need a guy like Connor Enright on your team, right? You need that lockdown defender. I think every good team has a guy like that on it. So I think, again, he's at his best when the offense has that second and third option, whoever steps up that given night.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think there's been times in games, and I think it's that balance, like you said. He's got to be the player that contributes, but doesn't feel like he has to contribute. It's kind of that weird thing where you see him force things at times, but as you said, downhill. He's got to be that downhill threat. He's got to be that guy that can get to the paint and possibly score. Now, Connor does a pretty good job of penetrating, dragging over the help, and then dishing off to like Reed Bailey. He has those moments, kicking it out kind of thing. But he's not always that scoring threat. He's not that threat where you've seen games where Tatum can, at will, get to the basket and just kind of get past his man and lay it in there with ease. Now he gets to be times where he feels like he needs to force that, where it's not there, and gets into trouble. But I think that's the kind of yin and yang balance you got to find with his game. You got to find times where he can be aggressive and be a little wild, make a few mistakes, but then also still stay within himself. So it is interesting. And I know it's kind of an ankle injury or lower leg, as they kind of like to say, and they don't speak of specifics with it. So we don't know exactly how much that's still nagging him, affecting the way he can cut and get downhill. Because a player like that, your ankles are your most important part of your body to be able to be explosive and get to that rim. So yeah, hopefully we can see a realm where he starts to find that balance in himself and can contribute, because the way the success just mounts from there. It takes off pressure. He's one of those players, like we're able to get a little bit with Connor, where he puts the opponent's defense out of rotation, scrambling and everything like that. And that's where those good three looks come for our guys on the outside. The last player I kind of want to talk about that we kind of briefly mentioned is Reed Bailey. Now, I think he's had his ups and downs as well. We've had some times this season where he has forced things against other big guys and struggled. And what I've seen recently is a little more of what I've hoped to see from him, where he has driven on some of the big guys. I thought he should have done that a little bit more on USC when they had their big 7-footer in there, because he was a little bit slower and more prone to foul, where he could have gotten to the basket from him. And that was a little bit of false security that he did get as well in the USC game, where he did have some success going to the rim, and then USC athletic guys that they have playing forward were able to figure that out, time it, and he got blocked many times. But yeah, just like his contributions, like to see that moving forward. And then also maybe I would also group into this a little bit to talk about Sam Alexis as well, because he's been those good minutes as well, a yin and yang thing, a rim protector as well for Indiana. So I think it's spelled a little bit of my concern leading into the Big Ten portion of this season with how are we going to handle the 5, where it's been a little bit better, but it's still a work in progress. Your kind of thoughts on IU Senders and where we kind of stand?
Yeah, I think USC was a bad matchup for him. And I think it shows in the stats. I think we were out rebounded 40 to 25. And I think it was pretty glaring on the offensive rebounding end. I think second chance points were something like 15-8 or 15-6 or something like that. So, defensively, USC had a lot of length. And I think when you look at the last three games, Reed Bailey, I thought really kind of shined against Purdue, really kind of shined against UCLA. Those teams aren't quite as athletic and long down low. Obviously, Purdue has some bigs, but I just think it's a better matchup for Sam Alexis and Reed Bailey. I thought Reed Bailey, for all the heat that he's taken all year, really looked well against those two teams. Obviously against UCLA, I think we'll say he took a step back. I just think it was a bad matchup for him. And I think, Reed Bailey has, especially once he gets kind of shut down at the rim, he has kind of a habit of trying to force some things. And that gets a little bit frustrating because a lot of times it results in bad shots or turnovers. And, I think that kind of was exposed a little bit against USC. But I think obviously you look at the way those two guys stepped up the previous two games, and I don't know that we win against Purdue or UCLA without them. So we've talked a lot about them, right? We know who this team is. We know who those guys are, and they aren't your prototypical Big Ten big guys. So there's going to be these games. The thing is, like when there are these games and you're playing these more athletic teams, it makes it that much more important that second and third offensive option shows up. You can't have everything go bad that went bad against USC, right? You can't shoot the ball bad and have our bigs have a bad game, right?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta have one or the other, right? You have to have that second perimeter guy step up and make some baskets. I think if you go back and look at the combined points between Tucker DeVries and Nick Dorn, it's not great, right? I think and I'm looking at it right now. Tucker had 5 points, Nick Dorn had 6 points, 11 points between your second and third leading scorer. That you're not going to win any game like that. And then when you have Reed Bailey struggle against their athleticism, it's going to magnify that as well. So I just think it was a bad matchup against USC. And it was just all eyes were on it because of how bad the offense looked as a whole. So I think they've got a great chance to rebound here against a Wisconsin team that isn't quite as athletic. And I'm really curious to see how they come out and perform, getting back home and a chance to prove some things against the Badgers.
Yeah, I will say kind of a final thoughts on basketball before we shift to kind of talk basketball or football. I will give kudos at least to the coaching staff. I think the coaching staff has done a good job this year making adjustments. You see the adjustments out there. You've seen, especially in the USC game, I wouldn't say that the offense ran badly because there were a lot of good open looks. There were a lot of just missed open threes in this game. And timeouts happened well. I thought subs were happening pretty well throughout this stretch. And then on the other end, where we talk about how is Indiana going to handle these bigs of other opponents, and you saw it kind of in the Purdue game where Indiana's done a good job on the defensive end being physical. Now, obviously, we got to get the fouling under control and everything, and I wouldn't begrudge the coaching staff for that. That's players getting tired and getting handsy and stuff, and you're also putting it in the hands of Big Ten refs, which is a whole nother argument and rant to get into, which we won't get into today. But you saw a scheme, at least, to take care of that, where Indiana was doing a lot of doubling. Indiana was doubling off of that. And not only that, the issue can become is how is your team going to handle when you coach them up into a doubling situation? How do you get out of that double? How do you rotate back to the open man kind of thing? And while Indiana did that throughout this stretch, I never really saw moments where that was a detriment. I always saw where that kind of was a good job to limit the other team, stop what they were trying to do, and cause them to have to reset. So kudos to the coaching staff, things that I've seen from them as we have moved forward. So yeah. So this show is, again, Hoosier Morning After. So I feel like we've kind of set ourselves up where we can kind of talk about any sport because it's the Hoosier Morning After. So I feel like as we have finished this football season and everything like that, we would be remiss not to kind of look back on this show and kind of talk about this season, because this has been quite the season. Now, this has been the season that I like to say of football, the season where the goalposts just kept moving and everything just came together, as the cliche has been said many times, like a movie, almost too perfectly of a movie, when even the producers of the Hallmark Channel would probably say that is not believable. I mean, you get a season that starts with the Old Dominion game, where the very first play of the season is an Old Dominion QB sneak for a touchdown, and a team that in that game, if you look back, struggled in the red zone to get anything going. And the narrative was then set through the national media, where last year was a fluke. And this is the old Indiana that we all know, and they're going to disappear again and become our punching bag yet again. They will then get to the opportunity to play a top 10 Illinois. Now, that was quite the narrative going into that. Indiana's going to get destroyed and everything. Nope. Indiana destroys them 63-10. New narrative now. Illinois is not good. You see the Indiana then go on the road and struggle a little bit against Iowa. And the narrative would slip yet again. See, we told you, they almost lost to them. Then you go to Oregon. Oregon's going to beat them. Oregon is a top 5 team. And there you go. Bam. They beat them. Best win of the season. Arguably the best regular season win of all of college football, resume-wise. Roll through the next 3 opponents like they're nothing. Then Penn State game. The catch of the year. The catch of the season. The catch that broke a broadcaster and his voice and caused quite a stir throughout the country. And just showing that this team can battle through things when things aren't going their way. Be a battle-tested team for Indiana. Then you get to the Big Ten championship game. So much press about the winning QB takes the Heisman. How is Indiana going to be able to handle Ohio State and Hoosier Nation, as they have and as they did for the rest of the season? Shows up in force and dominates the crowd. Tough battled game where IU comes out on top and claims the title and the number 1 spot for the first time, to pair with many, many program firsts at this point. And then just off to the side, your quarterback goes and wins the Heisman Trophy. No biggie. Epic QB speech. Epic speech to talk about a family in turmoil, a mother, a season dedicated to his mom, an immigrant, speaking Spanish to his grandparents there. That was great, wonderful to see. But then, as the stars would align just perfectly on this season to get the Rose Bowl, and not just any Rose Bowl, a Rose Bowl against one of the most historic powerhouses in all of college sports, being coached by one of your ex-coaches. Everyone yet again across the board picking against IU like game day has all year, except for one, the real one, Pat McAfee. Everyone saying, doubting Indiana, to then go on and dominate that game, both on the field and in the stands, by another terrific showing by Hoosier Nation. Now the bar has moved yet again. It is too hard to beat a team twice. Oregon's the next one up. This is the game that Oregon's going to be fired up for. And honestly, this was the one that had me the most concerned. But I shouldn't have been. Hoosier Nation South shows up, taking over the stadium with a pick 6 in the very first play and a pop in the crowd that nearly shatters all the glass in downtown Miami. Now, I have friends that work within media. I have friends that were there working at the game, cameramen, producers, things like that didn't have any skin in the game, that weren't Indiana fans, were just there working. And they have said that That was just the loudest they have ever been in a stadium. That is the loudest they have ever heard a fan base. So big up to you. Big kudos to Hoosier Nation for showing up with that and to dominate the game yet again. And then now the stage is set for the finals. A home game for Miami, an opponent that couldn't be much different than IU. Penalty-ridden, gritty, 5 stars throughout the board, big guys on the line. But of course, this is how it had to be for this season. This is how it had to be for the final game. The final giant to slay. And it all went down perfectly with the top play of the year. Your star quarterback, your Heisman winning quarterback, putting his body on the line in a 4th and 5 to scramble and dive for a touchdown, build the statue now, put it in front of the Rock. And the drama as an IU fan to watch Miami march down the field in their final possession, just taking a whole entire season as a fan, waiting for that shoe to finally drop and standing there in the crowd, screaming my heart out on defense, trying to do what we could to will this foot to not drop for Indiana, and the interception by Sharp. The explosion, the ecstasy, what a feeling that was to be there in that. And IU would be the undefeated national champions. What a season. What drama. What a wonderful place to be. What a feeling to have. Martha, how you feel about that?
You got choked up there just talking about it. Yeah. I mean, I think with each passing day, when you live through it, and obviously, from going to the national championship game, I was blessed enough to be able to go to all 3 bowl games, and obviously I've been going to Indiana football games for 30 years. I've been grew up playing football, so it's always been a passion of mine. And I've always held true to Indiana football, but to watch, to live through, the 30 seasons leading up to the Curt Cignetti tenure. And if you would have asked me 2 years ago, is this possible? I would have laughed. I would have said all the things, right? There's just no way. It doesn't happen like that. I'd be happy with, you give me 6 to 8 wins. I'm tickled pink. And, to see what's happened these last 2 seasons, and I give a lot of credit to Curt Cignetti's first team at Indiana. I think that they built the foundation and really, really showed what is possible for this program. And it took an investment from the highest level, from the university. So you got to give credit there with Pam Whitten and Scott Dolson for their willingness to open up the checkbooks and do what it takes to even make a lot of this possible. And then obviously hiring a guy like Curt Cignetti and what he's been able to do in terms of, change the culture in a season. And even all that said, like to roll out a perfect 16-0 season, it doesn't happen like that. So with each passing day, I think it sinks in a little bit more and more what this program was able to accomplish. Even now, I was in Dick's Sporting Goods here in Fort Wayne yesterday, and the entire middle row of the store is rack after rack after rack of IU stuff. I've never seen that in ever. They would hide the IU stuff back in the corner, right? Especially during football season. So it was just such a ride, such an incredible ride, and I think Indiana football fans have taken a lot of heat for called bandwagon fans, call them what they will, right? And for years, I think that this fan base has needed a reason to cheer for Indiana football. I think for years it's felt like the administration and the athletic department didn't necessarily care about Indiana football. It was what happened before basketball season, and at times there's been some highs, there's been some moments, right? But it's never been consistent enough to say I'm all in on this program. And I think Indiana fans, the fan base itself, has just needed that. They've needed that thing, right, to hang on to and to cheer for and to hold on to. And I think you saw it with each passing game that this fan base has dove in a little bit more with this program. And by the time it got to bowl season, everybody was all in. And call it bandwagon, call it what you will, but to watch, just being able to travel, you saw it in Miami, right? Just families be able to experience this together, experience these moments together. That was what was awesome to me, because you saw families that bled cream and crimson, whether they grew up Indiana basketball fans, whether they grew up football fans, they grew up Hoosiers at the end of the day. And to be able to, to use football as a way to show that passion as families together is what I thought was really, really awesome. You saw a lot of tears, you saw a lot of happy moments, and it was an incredible scene. It was something I don't know that will ever be able to be duplicated. I was just glad I got to experience it, and I know you are too, and I'm already looking forward to next fall.
Yeah. I think, and to talk on the bandwagon thing, I think it's just stupid to say that this was bandwagon. And I think that just stems from jealousy. Anyone that's saying that, because they saw how Hoosier Nation came out and how dominant the fan base was, and how much of an impact, honestly, that was at times for Indiana. I mean, that final drive that Miami had, they were backed up into Indiana's territory. Indiana's surrounded by Indiana fans. And the very first play was a delay of game because we were there yelling, screaming, being supporting. And I think the term bandwagon to me only applies when you have a team that has ups and downs of success, when you have a team that has done really well and people have shown up, and then when they struggle, you see it drop dramatically. And then when it is successful again, it fires back up again. When you're a team in a program like Indiana that has constantly struggled, that has the history of struggling, hasn't had that opportunity to have a really big high and a really big pop like we did this year, you don't have those fans disappearing and coming back. You may have a few, sure, from the Allen, we had a little bit of a pop. During Hep's time, we had a small pop, but there were so many games. I mean, like you said, you grew up as a fan. I grew up as a fan as well. My dad was a season ticket holder when he was there and was a professor at IU. And I, as a teenager, used to go with him and didn't watch a lick of the game. It took Antoine Randall to cause me to actually watch some of the games, because that was fun as a teenager to watch him go. But this was back in the days when the end zones were open and there was grass fields, and we'd sit and play football, touch football in the end zones, and we'd slide down the field on the cardboard and everything like that. My parents had their season tickets. I think they sat in their seats for the most part, but anyone basically just treat them as general admission tickets and sat wherever they wanted to. I think it was Adam on Twitter that posted the great Kennesaw State game, or I think it was that, where we went into the overtimes, and because they were switching end zones, you could see the whole entire side of the stadium shift down to be on the side of where the football was. So the bandwagon stuff, nah. Put that aside. I don't believe that and everything like that. But it is, again, lightning in a bottle this year. Amazing to be a part of. I don't regret anything about that. I know a lot of you were kind of following along and trying to help out on Twitter and everything like that. You saw the pictures as I struggled to find tickets as we went on. And I like the game plan that we did. And what we ended up doing was basically bought the parking pass, got into the parking area. Sadly, the way security was, I couldn't leave that parking area till I had a ticket. So Martha and I tried to hook up. I found out where Martha was, but couldn't get to Martha because I had to have a ticket to get to that next section. And then at the end, right before kick, biting the bullet to purchase those ridiculously priced tickets. But worth it, worth every penny and everything like that, to be able to say I was there, a part of it and everything. Go down on the field and not on the field, but down in the lower stands at the end of the game, and all the players around. Check on Twitter. I posted it before. I got a picture with Sharp and everything like that. Walked around. Let me see if I can reach it. And grabbed some confetti. So I got my Knicks jar here that's filled with championship confetti. It's going to be a treasured thing here in my office. You'll see sitting in the back here for the future, but just such an atmosphere, such a thing to be a part of and everything like that. And to see everyone and run into people I hadn't seen in so long and everything. And then just be a part of that avalanche of emotion that the championship game was, that fourth quarter up and down and cheering and everything like that. And for the most part, Miami fans were good. A few of them were a little rough. Probably Oregon fans get the MVP of fans that we have faced, but just amazing atmosphere and everything to be a part of. Tell me a little bit about your experiences on the day.
Well, it was an interesting, it was an interesting setup there at Hard Rock Stadium, right? It's having been to the Peach Bowl. Obviously, each bowl game was unique in and of itself. The Rose Bowl and the pageantry involved there is what it is. The Peach Bowl being more large city downtown. Hard Rock Stadium being it felt like the tailgating was very segmented, like where you were couldn't get to you without climbing a fence and doing something. I don't know what it was. And obviously all the security involved with the president being there and whatnot, but the setup in and of itself was strange. I didn't think it was the greatest place to host a national championship game. Just the logistics involved and trying to get there, getting out was a disaster. The F1 track, like it was just an odd setup, and it being Miami's home base, like upon entering, it was kind of a wild scene. But once you got past that first layer of Miami fans, it was pretty normal. And being able to spend the day with some IU fans, I wish I would have been able to connect with more. But again, the logistics made that tough. And but yeah, just being able to spend the day, get there early, got in the stadium early, just because of all the reports about how long it was going to take. I think it ended up taking 10 to 15 minutes to get in. It wasn't any big deal, but being able to just kind of soak it in and be in there for all of it, spend time, in the concourse with a bunch of IU fans, and then get in to see all the pregame pageantry with the bands and the flyover and the anthem and all that stuff. It was everything I expected and more, and being able to stick around afterwards and celebrate. Just a ton of fun and something I could get very, very used to. Would love to now do it on the basketball side of things. But it was just fun being able to travel with a bunch of IU fans. And I thought one of the coolest things was the next morning, getting up and going to the Fort Lauderdale airport and seeing thousands and thousands of IU fans still in IU gear, maybe some people wearing some of the same IU gear that they wore the night before, and just everybody smiling at each other. Tired eyes, tired legs, tired bodies, but everybody just kind of grinning at each other, smiling at each other, saying, "Can you believe it?" Having people come up to you from opposing fans saying, "Man, I'm not an IU fan, but I was rooting for you. Congratulations." It was that side of it was a lot of fun too. So overall, just a really, really amazing experience. I told my daughter after what it cost to go to all three of these games, she might not be going to college now, but that's a sacrifice you have to make. I'm glad you got a ticket, though. I know you worked very, very hard. I think you might have sold a kidney in the parking lot to be able to get in, but you were there.
Yeah. Well, and I think you'll be all right. I've seen some of those highlights of your daughter. The basketball game's coming along well. We'll get her that scholarship, and I think you'll be fine on that. And I do kind of want to finish this just kind of talking about just overall how things have lined up with Cignetti and where we think kind of the future might hold. And obviously there is a realm where we have to kind of temper some of those expectations more moving forward and know that this was probably perfection, and hitting this perfection is going to be tough. Now, that doesn't mean dropping our bar back down to a bowl game a year. I think that there can be arguments for that. But when you kind of look at how things have fallen into place, it's just been all the perfect timing for this, with Coach Cignetti being hired, being overlooked and everything, and bringing his players along to set the kind of foundation where we kind of lose them, many of them, this year because they're out of eligibility. But all of those guys with a chip on the shoulder. And then the biggest concern as that kind of came along was how do you mold two locker rooms together? Because there were IU players that were staying along there. Now, I think a lot of that and a lot of credit to that transitional success and everything happening right away goes to a lot of those foundation IU players. And specifically, you can kind of point to players like Mike Kadick being those cheerleaders and everything, and those culture guys that helped kind of get things going for IU. And then just that we always have to look back as we continue on, and shouldn't ever be overlooked, to Curtis Rourke and what he did to kind of set the bar as well for Indiana on a torn ACL, on a bad thumb and everything, to show the grit that it can be to be a player and fight for this Indiana team. Now, moving forward, obviously, having a season like we did, the doors have opened up. You've seen a lot of the higher caliber players looking at IU, and IU is going to have a great opportunity to grab good players, and already have in the transfer portal. Great quarterback coming next year in Hoover, and other things lining up as they go. Obviously, still some holes that need to be filled, but you have continuity still. You have coaches that have stayed. Obviously, they lost strength and conditioning coach, which is kind of a big hit, because obviously he was a big part of a good program there for Indiana. But then you have a quarterback coach that comes back. Didn't have the best success being a offensive coordinator. Some people may be a little sour about him coming back and everything like that. But if Cignetti likes it and wants it, then I'm all for that. And just looks like all things will line up for a good continued success. Obviously, a lot of turnaround, a lot of turnover, some good players still there. And we're going to have to see in the non-conference how they can bring these pieces together. And there's going to be some struggles and some timing, like we had for the Old Dominion game. We're going to have a game like that. We're going to have a game where this team looks like it struggles, but this coaching staff is going to figure things out and get them going. Your kind of thoughts as this team projects into next year?
Well, I think the continuancy of everything you mentioned, right? Being able to bring both coordinators back, and even when you lose a guy like Chandler Whitmer, who was our quarterback coach, to bring, Tino back, who came over from JMU with Coach Cignetti and went to UCLA to be their offensive coordinator, to bring him back. Just the ability to mitigate change and minimize it as much as possible. I think from a coaching staff standpoint, that's incredibly key. Obviously roster turnover is going to happen whether you're good or not in this era. And Indiana's been fortunate enough to have, I think, good roster turnover. This season, you've got a lot of guys going pro. You're losing a lot of production to the NFL, which is good for a program as well. Obviously they retain a lot as well, but to be able to attract new talent, anytime you send that many guys to the NFL, you're going to attract talent, but there's going to be change, right? There's going to be, I think we're naive if we think every season is going to end up 16-0 from here moving forward. There's going to be adversity. There's too many good college football teams. Now, does adversity mean a 6-6 season? No, but what it also means is we may lose a game or two along the way, and that's still okay. You can still make the college football playoff losing a game or two. But I think the standard, you hear Coach Cignetti talk a lot about the standard is the standard, regardless of who we're seeing, who we're playing, and what we're doing. Every day, the standard is the standard. And if you're not meeting that standard, you're either getting worse or better. You're not staying the same. And so I think he set a new standard for this program. And I think the bar has been raised. I think 6 wins is no longer, what this fan base is aspiring for. I think it's a spot in the college football playoff. And I think that's the bar that Coach Cignetti has set. But it doesn't mean every season is going to be, the first time, I'm wondering what our reaction is going to be like the first time we lose a football game, whenever that may be. It's like, oh, we're all doom and gloom. No, we're going to lose some football games here moving forward, right? It's going to happen. The college football landscape is too competitive. It's too good. The Big Ten is too good. It's going to happen. But I think full trust in Coach Cignetti for the standard that he set. And I'm just excited to see what it looks like moving forward. And the fact that he's been able to keep both coordinators after the last 2 seasons he has had, I think speaks to both. Speaks to the program he's built, but also the university's commitment to be able to invest and continue investing in what's needed to keep this program in a successful spot.
Yeah. And we see Cignetti continue to be Cignetti and the coach that we love and delivering his liners. I mean, there's the recent video that's circulating right now that's fantastic of him talking to the Fox guys on a podcast, and one of them asks, "Where are the trophies right now?" And he says, "About 4 feet from me. I'm gonna have to have them move them out of here because I don't want to get soft and everything." But just how great is that? I mean, he's just great what we have, and it's fantastic, and the culture's set, the things are right, and now we just need to get basketball on its right foot, and I think it's headed in the right way. I think basketball will find its footing. It'll find where it needs to be and everything like that. Obviously, women's basketball is struggling a bit right now too. It's struggling to find its feet. And I think we need to have patience with all that. And if you're one that's struggling with those patience, struggling with what to do with those tickets that you have for those games, don't want to go, I have an idea of something you can do with those tickets. Martha, tell them what they can do with any tickets they have to games that they don't want to use.
Yeah, thank you, Chad. Obviously, we are entering kind of the home stretch, I think, of the basketball seasons here with February and specifically the home slate of the basketball seasons. And it's been a great year for the Hoosier Ticket Project, and we want to have a great finish to the season as well. We've got some big conference games for both programs. Starts with Wisconsin for the men on Saturday and Purdue for the women on Sunday, I believe. I might have that backwards, but I think that's what it looks like. And we've got a bunch of youngsters going to the Purdue Indiana women's game on Sunday. Starting to have some tickets rolling for the men's Wisconsin game and the Oregon game, I think, on Monday or Tuesday. Anybody that has tickets that can't use them, obviously it's been a rough winter. If travel affects your ability to get there, the Hoosier Ticket Project would be happy to get those tickets into some deserving individuals' hands and get them the ability to take their family, their children to games. A lot of times it's people that have never been there, people that generally can't afford to get there. So we try to remove those barriers, get as many kids and families to games that otherwise wouldn't be able to attend. So if you've got tickets or want to donate to the cause, you can check that out at HoosierTicketProject.org/donate. Or if you know somebody or yourself is in a situation that would like to get to a game, you can go to that same link and hit the request tab and put a request in as well. So appreciate it, Chad. Thank you.
Yep. HoosierTicketProject.org. Check them out. Great program. Great thing to have as a fan base. Sadly, I searched on there. I couldn't find national championship football tickets. Weren't available for that though. So final thoughts for you, where you think where football is right now, where they're headed. Where's your mind right now with Indiana basketball?
You said football and then you went to basketball.
I did. Sorry, basketball.
Basketball. Okay. So obviously, the roster and the team kind of is what it is. I think it's obviously it's built to score, it's built to shoot 3-pointers, and it's kind of understood that all those buttons might not be clicking every single night, right? We hope that they are, and many times they have. In fact, here the past 3 games, we've kind of hit our stride, hit our rhythm. I think when you look at where this program and team is right now, I think there's a lot of opportunity ahead of them. You look at the schedule, you've got a couple home games here against Wisconsin and Oregon. If you can get those 2 games, I think right now they're still kind of on the right side of the bubble, but you get those 2 home games. I think you put yourself firmly in the tournament, and there's still not going to be a lot of room for error, but there's still going to be a schedule that's full of opportunity. We know this roster and the way it was built and as quick as it was built probably has some deficiencies down low. We can't change that right now. So I think our hope is now, with Coach DeFreeze getting a full season behind him, obviously let's make a run at the tournament, but then he's going to have a chance to build this roster up even better as we get into next season. You see what he's been able to do in recruiting. We've had a guy like Nick Dorn step up, and we don't know what we've got with the younger Josh Harris, but he came in pretty heralded. You're starting to see some building blocks. Trent Sisley, I know Gritty mentioned, why isn't Trent Sisley playing more? It's that I don't have the answer for that. I think he's played fewer minutes than maybe he should have, but he's also a freshman and he's also on that 3-game that West Coast trip as well. So he might be dealing with some fatigue as well. So, but you're starting to see those building blocks. So I think the hope is now we finish this season well. We put ourselves in a position to make the tournament. But I've got full faith that Coach DeFreeze is going to build this thing up and put us together an even stronger roster for next season.
Yeah. Like we have said, and like maybe the dead horse that I keep beating, this team and this season is just going to be a roller coaster, and we just have to strap in and put our hands up and yell and scream and enjoy the ride, because football has set the bar that is going to give coaches fits throughout the nation. There's lots of ADs that are looking at their football coaches going, look at what Signetti did. Look at what he did in a quick turnaround. Why can't you do that? And we as a fan base, as Hoosier Nation, can't be applying that same kind of theme or rhetoric towards DeFreeze and his staff, because I think it's there. I think I've seen the game plan. I've seen the things that they do and the way they're coaching. And I think that it'll come along. And I think we have to have patience as a fan base. And I know that's a tough ask because of what we have dealt with in the recent past with Indiana basketball. This team is going to be an interesting team. It's an older team. It's going to have some success. It's going to have some failures. And like Martha said, I think this team currently sits in that bubble region, and it's going to be very interesting to see how things line up. We need to take care of our home games. We need to deal with that as best we can. And I think as a fan base, we can be there supporting. We can show up like we did for the Purdue game and give them that juice where they need it to push them past that little bit of fatigue that they have. So that's my plea to the fan base. That's the plea to just be patient, be there, support this team, because things are going to be interesting. They're going to be up and down, and I'm going to be there for it. And I'm going to be there for every single game. And I appreciate you being here for us and being patient for us as we have missed a lot of games, a lot of shows as we've gone. Since the national championship game, I got hit with a major cold, so I've been a little out of commission. I've had work and everything like that. So thank you. We'll try to get back on a regularly scheduled program basis moving forward. But thank you for watching. If you're listening on the podcast streams, please leave a review, a like. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe. We appreciate it. This is something that Martha and I do out of love for the program and the sports. So I appreciate you being there with me. Follow me on Twitter at General Chadwick. Follow Martha at the Mop Lady. We'll be back again the morning after the next game. Until then, guys, go out there, have yourselves a wonderful Thursday, and let's go Hoosiers.
Thank you, brother.